Young scientists, and welcome to the Demystifying Research YouTube channel. My name is Faith, and I'll be giving you some troubleshooting tips for research. More specifically, the dreaded titration. Dun dun dun. Titration is an essential technique in the lab used to find the concentration of an unknown solution using the solution of the known concentration. So in other words, the titrant, the known solution, is added from a burette to a known quantity of analyte, which is the unknown solution, until the reaction is complete. I remember one of my first big kid lab skills I developed was my titrating skills, but I didn't develop the skill readily. It took lots of persistence, frustration, and patience to finally perfect it. Titration can be a slow and tedious process that can seem like you've been experiencing more setbacks than accomplishments at times. But it's important to understand that it's completely okay to feel discouraged, but we must always persist. I can't tell you the number of times I felt like giving up on a titration because I overshot the substance and completely missed the equivalent point. But the patience and critical eye I developed while repeatedly doing these titrations only made me a pro at it. Now you could catch me performing accurate titrations like there's no tomorrow. The entire titrating process can be intimidating and challenging, but fret not. That's why I'm here to help make your life a little easier by enlightening you on some troubleshooting tips for conducting titrations. Let's get started. Tip number 1, never ever cut corners when reading and following the procedure. Yes, I know these steps can be long and tedious. Reading each word feels like a chore, and you would rather just skim it and get the idea of what the procedure is saying. That right there is a big no-no. Skimming the words in a procedure is a guaranteed ticket to screwing up your work and starting all over again. I like to highlight or use colored pens to help me distinguish certain parts of the procedure, like what quantity of the unknown concentration solution am I putting in the flask, or how many milliliters of the known concentration am I pouring in the burette. Remember to remain patient always. The art of patience ties into my next point, which is tip number 2. Take note of all the results and run more titration tests if you have to. I understand that we want our actual results to be our ideal results, so there is a temptation to not write down certain results or alter our data to fit our expectations. Again, please do not do this. The whole point of conducting an experiment is to test whether reality supports our hypothesis or not. You have to be patient as you open and close the tap of the burette to gradually let the titrant drip down into the analyte flask. If you don't close the tap immediately, you might end up overshooting the titration, which means you gotta redo the whole setup again. But sometimes you can't avoid overshooting, which is completely okay. Be sure to record all your results, like what volume you overshot at, so that when you run another test, you can be more careful around that range. Part of titrating is running multiple tests. That way, you can have multiple samples to refer to and get more data to get a more accurate result in your calculations. Tip number 3, reflect on the experiment. After completing the experiment, I'm sure there was a ton of hoops you had to jump through to reach the equivalent point and perform appropriate calculations. It's always great to reflect on the entire process. Every great scientist thinks about possible improvements they can make to the experiment for future design purposes. This will help you enhance critical thinking and problem-solving skills by asking yourself questions like, what went wrong during the experiment? Or, how can I do better? What adjustments do I need to make to the procedure in the future? Through reflection and thoughtful thinking, you can create a better version of your titration and, most importantly, yourself. Tip number 4, never forget to remain confident in yourself. It's completely okay to make mistakes along the way during your experiment, even after closely following the procedure. Whether you made a bunch of small mistakes or completely bombed your titration, always remain confident in your abilities as a student. A failed experiment never equates to your abilities as a researcher. Use the critical thinking skills you developed throughout this experimental journey and assess the titration. Use your resources like background knowledge to evaluate whether your obtained results are due to experimental error or are actually accurate. You can always reach out to experienced researchers like your lab supervisors, teaching assistants, or peers for help. It's always great to get a second opinion from someone else. But most importantly, take what you've learned from the titration and use it as tools to become a better researcher. Stick true to yourself and remain confident in your own capabilities, because I know you have such a great potential and will do remarkable things in the future, one titration at a time. Well, while you're still here, don't forget to click that subscribe button on our YouTube channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Until next time, my young scientists.